You are listening to 600 Second Saga. Today's feature is Locked Eyes by Moxie LaBouche. The corpse's eyes were open. This was usually the case. The average body didn't come with lids placidly shut, as those whose eyes had been closed a moment after their on-screen death by one of the more important characters. Most of the residents of the basement of Number 2 North were wheeled in, were wheeled about, and then waited, with their eyes at half-mast. Their lids would approximately bisect the iris of the eye, lending them an air of boredom. They never appeared interested in anything. But this corpse. His eyes were tracking her. Dr. Arena Kori had been awake a long time, but not long enough to be seeing things. She let her eyes blink as much as they cared to clear away the shadow of what her mind was trying to claim had happened in front of her. The rich brown eyes of the male corpse, pale, immobile, and uncovered on the rolling table, had followed her as she stepped from his head to the spot on his waist where she was currently trapped. A logical voice struggled to be heard over the thought-eroding feeling of being startled. It was a shadow. Having an explanation, even if it was wrong, had miraculous powers to quell panic. Arena nodded the tiniest bit, as if to herself. She fixed her eyes to his, and stepped back to the space between the counter and the head of the table. The colored irises of his eyes stayed where they were. No, they didn't. His eyes were straight forward now, even looking a little upward. As far upward as a person can look without muscles to move their eyebrows. Surely, the eyes looking to the right was the shadow. Surely. Arena stepped slowly to a place parallel to the first, but perhaps a step back. The near eye was in the slight shadow cast on the left side of his face, but the corpse's eyes were absolutely following her. Arena had no fear of dead bodies. The meat we leave behind had been her bread and butter for nearly 10 years, even prior to medical school. The thought of being near or touching a dead person was unremarkable to her. She did not fear dead people, but someone on her table who was potentially still alive set her skin crawling. It was the persistent urban legend of medical examiners, a body waking up in their morgue, the equivalent of humorous things removed from rectums by ER doctors, only not humorous for any party involved. The state in which she lived allowed paramedics to declare death on scene or before arriving at the hospital. Maybe in the back of the rig, in the heat of the moment, someone had made a mistake both understandably human and indescribably profound. Arena took a step forward and placed her fingertips on the inside of the corpse's wrist. His skin was cold, as cold as it should be. There was no pulse. She moved her hand to his neck, where there was not even a sign of a pulse. Arena would have listened to his heart, but it was not as if a stethoscope was standard equipment in the morgue, and she could not bring herself to lay her ear to his chest. She fished under her lab coat, into her pants pocket, for her cell phone and turned on its flashlight. Over one eye, then away. Over the other eye, then away. The pupils did not constrict or relax. Arena moved to the tray of tools on the counter for a scalpel. His eyes, never blinking, stayed with her. Holding her breath, she pressed the tip of the blade into the thin flesh of his sternum and withdrew it. Braced against what she had no reason to expect to see, she looked closely at the 1-centimeter wound. No blood. No inflammatory response. There was no way this body could be alive. Yet, his eyes locked onto hers when she looked at his face. Her reflex was to talk to him, but that wasn't her way. She didn't make conversations with the corpses. That was the domain of TV coroners. The archetypes were always shown eating in the morgue, despite how many rules that would violate. Nevertheless, she wanted to talk to him, to ask him if he was still inside, if he needed help. Irina's voice came out as a coarse breath as she tried to speak. She cleared her throat, gathered her nerve, and tried again. Now her voice sounded too loud in the room. Hey, hello, are you? Can you hear me? There was no response in the eyes. If you can hear me, move your eyes side to side. The irises did not move. After a few anxious seconds, Irina swayed her body. The eyes followed the movement. Move your eyes, she said more strongly. Nothing. If she did not move, neither did his eyes. Should she tell someone? Who would she tell? What would she say? There was no professional protocol for a dead body with a single seemingly living trait. What could she do? She started the autopsy. This was Locked Eyes by Moxie LaBouche. Before she started the Your Brain on Facts podcast as a way to vent the copious factoids from her brain, Moxie LaBouche performed and produced burlesque, specializing in nerd-lesque, i.e. dressing up and then undressing as beloved fictional characters, everything from Cheetarah to Dracula's assistant Renfield. It was also her privilege to produce the only George R.R. Martin-approved burlesque tribute tour and even play for him. She was a presenter in a local TED Talk, talking unsurprisingly about burlesque, and previously earned her living as a goat farmer. Check our show notes for links. Music is provided by Mads. Learn more about 600 Second Saga, our authors, how to submit your flash fiction, and how to support the podcast in the show notes. This has been Mariah Avix and 600 Second Saga.